So who else wants to feel alive? And then if we could try to figure out what we could do to make ourselves feel more alive, then guess what? Then we have to become more alive. How exciting would that be? If we had the ability to allow ourselves to become more alive and then all of a sudden end up going into that space and allow ourselves to just feel the way that we want to feel. And I was recently speaking to somebody and he was telling me how recently he started a new venture and he's really, really excited about it. And he's been seeing some really great stuff happening. And he's so juiced up. He is so pumped up from what it is that he's doing that he said there's this energy, there's this aliveness that he feels that is just incredible. And if we could start to recognize what it is that we can start to do to feel that aliveness, because it's usually based on something, it's based on some type of work that we're doing or some type of goal. It could be bigger, it could be small, but regardless, it's something that we can start to do and allow ourselves to just feel the way that we want to feel. Imagine how that could be. And then there's the other side of the coin about maybe there's just like this feeling that we want to be able to feel. Like no matter about what's going on, whether things are going great, whether things are not going the way we would really like to see them, but they're going, they're going, but there's this essence, there's this feeling deep down inside that we know that we're going to be okay, that things are great. And a lot of people, I think, end up getting very pessimistic when it comes to a lot of these different feelings and these energies, but realizing that the feelings that we have, we train ourselves. Since we're kids, we train ourselves. And what's interesting is we don't allow ourselves to feel, and we don't allow ourselves to work on ourselves until we could have the belief that we can start to change ourselves. And that's something in regards to like the growth mindset and really taking it down that path, but understanding that we do have the ability to move and to change. And if we can start to say to ourselves, hey, you know what are the things that I can start to do to allow myself to feel a certain way? That could be the thing that really starts to shift it all. Because there are certain energy levels that we all have. And I remember one of the first times I really started to get obsessed about this was I was running my first big event, and we had a couple hundred people sign up every day to the event. It was a couple of days, it was over 1,000 people came to the event. It was really, really amazing stuff. And I was so nervous because nobody was really doing this in my specific niche, in my specific industry. And what was interesting is that once I started to see that success, I got this high, and I knew that this high was not going to last for long. And that's one of the fears that people have. And I think one of the fears that people have in terms of maybe not allowing themselves to feel or enjoy what it is that they're going through, but understanding that that high I knew was something that I wanted to try to attain, something that I wanted to try to reach. And I realized it wasn't going to be forever. And it wasn't. It wasn't. Very transparent. It was not forever. But what I wanted to try to do is how can I raise my standard, my level in terms of what it is that I want to be doing? How can I try to work on myself in a way where, regardless of what's going on around me, I could start or maybe tap into this energy level? And if I have a board in front of me, and what I have on the board is like I have my energy level that I want to try to reach. If I could tap into that energy level once a day, twice a day, if I could do some meditation, if I could do some manifestation in terms of feeling a certain way, do you not think that's only going to help me be more attracted to that feeling? And when I was one time speaking to my mindset coach, and I asked him the question because I was new to this field, I really didn't know what to expect, and I asked him, "Do we have the ability to be at a level 10 energy all the time?" You look at like a Tony Robbins, and he's like so juiced up and jacked up every time you see him. The question is like, let's assume that that's how he is all the time, and we need to ask ourselves, is that possible? Is that something that's really something we can achieve? And what his response was is that when you start to get to level 10 and then that becomes your base, you end up going to like a different level. And because you go to a different level, things start to change. So your new 10 is really a 4 or 5. And for me, that was like very, very exciting because what ends up happening is we end up just upping the game a little bit in terms of how we can feel and the excitement that we can have and the things that we can start to tap into. And I think it's something that's really, really important when it comes to what it is that we want to be doing is how can we start to tap into what it is that we want. And during that time that I was, on such a high energy level, I would say I was a 9.5 or 10 that the whole time for probably like 2 weeks. It was amazing. I felt so good that I was embracing it. I had this guilty feeling. I remember during the time I was speaking to my coach, and I was like, well, should I allow myself to feel this way, or should I not allow myself to feel this way? Should I feel good about myself, or should I just say, hey, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't, because I know there's going to be a bigger downside. And we're so good at feeling bad all the time that when you have an opportunity to feel good about yourself, allow yourself to feel good. And this is one of the things that I find in a lot of coaches talk about, how when you have a big win, or if you have a goal that you hit, celebrate the goal. Allow yourselves to attain and to achieve and to feel good about something. Because if we can start to feel good about something, if we can start to say, hey, you know what, I can do X, Y, and Z and feel a certain way, then all of a sudden what ends up happening is we allow ourselves to be attracted to that feeling. We don't guilt ourselves into not being there anymore. And that is something that is so powerful that so many people don't realize, is you have to celebrate the wins. If we can start to celebrate the wins, we can start training ourselves in order to feel a certain way. And if we can start to train ourselves to feel a certain way, what ends up happening is we allow ourselves to really start to achieve and to try to just be more aware about what's really going on there. And so many people don't realize it, but if you can start to work on that and train yourself, then all of a sudden you start to allow yourselves to easily just get into it. It's, it's sort of like this gate that you have to hold up, and the longer you could like tap into that energy, the higher the gate stands. And once you like back off, the gate starts to lower. And if you want to be able to join and jump into that feeling, then you have to really just keep that going. You have to keep tapping into it. It's like any skill really that you want. If you stop doing the thing, if you want to become good at piano and you stop for a month or 2 months, so you'll probably be a little rusty once you start up again. And if you have that consistent flow, it's just, even if it's for 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, you could practice piano. So that itself will just keep you going. It's so many times people think it's all or nothing. And, it's, I need to be on the energy 10 level all day, or I can't have it at all. It's like, why not have it for 30 seconds? Why not allow yourselves to tap into it for 30 seconds? Can't that be something that feels really amazing? And I think if we can start to recognize that, I think that could really start to shift a lot of things. And one of the cool things that I saw a lot of business books. So this is like a business thing. It's crazy that it was in so many business books. A lot of business people, what they do is when they end up getting a win, when then they end up feeling a certain way that they know they want to be able to tap back into, so they usually give themselves some type of trigger. They train themselves, just like Pavlov's dogs. They train themselves with a sort of trigger that allows them to tap into it. So for example, whether they close a big sale, so they might smell a certain type of candle or a certain type of chapstick, or they might touch themselves in like a random place, like in their shoulder or on their palm. And they end up doing is they end up training their subconscious that every time I smell that candle or I touch myself on my palm, what ends up happening is I could tap back into that feeling. Because if I could tap into the feeling of how I felt after I closed that sale, and that amazing feel, and I could bring that energy to the beginning of a sale, you don't think it's going to be more likely that I'm going to be able to close it? And that was something that was so interesting and so powerful. And I learned it in the whole mindset world. But then when I heard about this, and I was reading like literally 2 or 3 business books back to back, I quoted it and I was like, this is the weirdest thing. And they really say a lot of their success comes to that because they have this ability just to snap into it. And I think actors and actresses probably have to practice that because they have to get into character when they're acting. And I think that's something that's so powerful, that if we could start to train ourselves and start to just give ourselves little triggers about what it is we could do, what is it we could smell, what is it that we can, look at or think about that can help us become somebody and tap into somebody, that could be something that could be really, really powerful. So what are we supposed to do? So we spoke about being possible, it being possible to tap into our energy levels, being possible to recognize that even if we feel guilty about enjoying it, it's really good and it's powerful to allow ourselves to do it. And we have to really then, one of the questions I get, but like let's say things are not great. Let's say I haven't had a win in a long time. Let's say my finances are really messed up. Let's say I'm in a situation, in a relationship or my job that like I'm really just not happy about. Like, how am I supposed to feel good and excited and alive then? And that's a big question you need to ask yourself. And we need to ask ourselves the question. I think the first step is asking the question: Is it possible? Are there people who maybe don't have things perfect, but like they're okay? Are there people who are still on the road to wherever it is that they want to go, and they're not there yet? And maybe they've seen a little bit of success, or maybe not no success at all, or maybe only failures. And if we can start to train ourselves and say to ourselves, hey, you know what? What is that I need to do? What's the perspective I need to shift? And, Viktor Frankl talks about in Man's Search for Meaning that it's really about the meaning we give to things. And the way we view our situation really changes everything. And so many people don't realize that if we could just shift our meaning, then everything else could change. And if we can start to realize, hey, you know what? I do have the ability to shift something. I do have the ability to give it something a different meaning. Then all of a sudden, life is a lot different. So, for example, if somebody is, let's say, in a job that they don't like, so they usually come to work, they're miserable the whole day, and they just like dread going to sleep because they don't know if they'll wake up and go back to the job. They could view it like that, and that's the meaning they could give it, that it's dreadful. Or they could give it a meaning of like, hey, I'm at this position where I really don't like my job, and the only place I can really go right now is up. Like, there's more opportunity for me to be a better person, to be a happier person, to be a more alive person, because there's maybe another opportunity out there that I would really like to enjoy. So how can I find myself getting to a place where I can try to find that opportunity? Because I'm telling you, and if you are feeling stuck, and if you are feeling down, and if you haven't felt that energy, that excitement, or that aliveness in a long time, so your strategy currently has been, well, let me just rip on everything. Let me just complain about everything. Let me just complain about my life and my situation and what happened to me in the past. And if you're still complaining about it, how has that gone? Probably not so great. And what we have to realize is that we have the ability to shift, and we have the ability to change. And if we could just start to give it a little bit of a different meaning, maybe it's like, your health is not the greatest, and you're trying to figure out, and you're annoyed about like your weight, or you're just not working out as much as you want. And it's like, hey, you know what? I'm missing something. There's some type of shift over here that I'm missing. And it's one of the things that I was really, in a weird way, I was really grateful for when I started my entrepreneur journey. Because when you start your entrepreneur journey, you think like everything's gonna be amazing. You think you're gonna make $1 million. You think your first idea is gonna be, off the charts, and everyone's gonna love your product, and you're gonna be able to do everything that you see all the people that you want to become do. And then you realize, wait a second, that didn't work, and that didn't work, and that didn't work. And there's this like very easy tunnel that you can go down that's just destroying yourself. Like, oh my gosh, my expectations are totally off. But we have to realize is we could look at like that, or we start to say, hey, wait a second, I just got hit with a nice dose of reality, and there's a lot more I need to learn right now. There's a lot more I need to start to shift right now. There's a lot more that I don't know, and I have to start to really start to think about it. I have to start to get creative about it. Then all of a sudden, those conversations to yourself, those questions that you ask yourself, are the things that are going to make you the person who you're going to become. The successful entrepreneurs who all talk about the hard journey had to ask themselves those questions. They had to like hit that brick wall and feel like they're in this room with no door out, try to figure out, what am I supposed to do? I feel so lost, and I feel so stuck. And it's still like, I need to figure this out, even though it doesn't seem like there's an exit. And if we can start to say that, and we can start to just understand, hey, you know what? I'm just giving it a different meaning. Like, oh, this feeling right here, this the feeling of like, maybe I'm not making as much money this month, and it's so flexible. Every month I'm making more or less, or you know what? Maybe my business idea has not sold anything, and I'm just like this big fluke. So the fact that we can look at that and say, this is what like the definition of hard is. This is what we have to go through to become somebody. Then all of a sudden we give it such a different meaning, because it's not we're failing, we're growing in the moment. Because right now we thought that A equals B, and now we realize, oh wait, A doesn't equal B. We have to do something different. And that's something that we have to shift. And one cool way that you can get yourself out of the present moment, and I talk a lot about being present, and I think that's a big way to allow ourselves to have a meaningful and fulfilling life. But one of the things that we can start to do to allow ourselves to see the success moving forward, and to get ourselves out of that, because we're so focused on the now, and the now is not great, is look to set goals. And not just like a goal over the next like 3 months. Like, look to set like a 10-year goal. Look to set like a 15-year goal. Because if I told you in 15 years, can you have a six-pack? Can you be your dream weight in 15 years? You have 15 years to do it. Do you think you could do it? It sounds a lot easier. In 15 years, can you build yourself a financial wall that could really help support your family? Maybe not even so crazy. Can you make $1 million over the next 15 years? Less than $100,000 a year? And the answer is like, probably yes. So we end up putting ourselves in so much more pressure by focusing on the current situation and what's going on now. And if we can start to say, hey, you know what? It's not going to be about the now right now, because the now ain't working. But what I do want to do is I do want to shift the meaning of the now. And the second thing is I want to set longer goals, give myself a longer time horizon. And if we do that, that's going to be a thing that's really going to start to shift. So many people dread their days. They've felt that feeling maybe once or twice of excitement, aliveness. They want to be able to tap into it again. And if you could start to, number one, shift the meaning. You can start to set goals. If you could start to even set smaller goals and then get those wins and celebrate those wins, I'm telling you, things are going to be a lot different in our lives. We're going to start to feel a lot more alive and feel a lot more excited with everything going on.